Today, inshallah, we'll be taking the last chapters of Al-Rasm regarding how the letter Ta is written in the Mus'haf, and then two small sections regarding how you start a word with Hamzatul Wasl, and then how you're allowed to stop on certain words in the Quran. The first chapter that we're going to look at today is regarding when is the Ta marbuta written as a flat Ta in the Quran. There are certain places in the Quran where Qiyas says that according to the rules of Imla, I should write this Ta as a Ta marbuta. Like in the word Rahmah. Rahmah has a Ta marbuta at the end of it. But there are some places in the Quran where instead of following Qiyas, it's written with a flat Ta. And according to whichever Qira I'm reciting with, that's going to affect how I stop on the word. Some of the Qurra, such as Hafs, they will stop according to how it's spelled. So if it's spelled with a flat Ta, they're going to stop and say Rahmat. Other Qurra, even if it's spelled with a flat Ta, they will say originally it was supposed to be a Ta marbuta, so they will stop with a Ha, Rahmah. Additionally, the reason why certain words are written with a flat Ta instead of the Ta marbuta is because the Sahaba, when they were writing the Mus'hafs, they were trying to facilitate more than one qira'ah. So by writing it with a flat Ta, I'm able to recite the word with more than one way if it has been narrated that way. And then the final benefit of knowing this is to ensure that we preserve the writing of the Mus'haf, because the Mus'haf is not based off Qiyas, it's based off how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum chose to originally write it, and we want to make sure that we preserve every single letter the way they wrote it. So to begin with, we now enter into Bab at-Ta'ati, the chapter on the letter Ta, which is written flat in the Quran, going against the Qiyas that says it should be written as Ta marbuta. So Ibn al-Jazari rahimahullah starts off by saying, وَرَحْمَةُ الزُّخْرُفِ بِالتَّا زَبَرَةِ لَعْرَافِ رُومٍ هُودَ كَافِ الْبَقَرَةِ. The first word he gives us is the word Rahmah. And then he lists the surahs where it will be written with a flat Ta. So he says, Az-Zukhruf is the first one, Bitta Zabara. With Ta it has been written. Also, La'rafi, Surah A'raf, Rum, Hud, Kaf, and this is another name for Surah Maryam since it starts off with the letter Kaf, and then Al-Baqarah. So we'll look at each of these places in more detail. Again, this is the word Rahmah. Qiyas says that it should have a Ta marbuta at the end, but in these places it's written with a Ta, and if I was reading with Hafs, I would say Rahmat when stopping on the word. So the first one Ibn al-Jazari mentions is in Surah Al-Zukhruf, and there's actually two places in the same ayah. The first section of the ayah, أَهُمْ يَقْسِمُونَ رَحْمَةَ رَبِّكَ. So here the letter is Ta, not Ta marbuta. And then in the same ayah at the ending, وَرَحْمَةُ رَبِّكَ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُ. The third place in Surah Al-A'raf, إِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Then in Surah Rum, فَانظُرْ إِلَىٰ آثَارِ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. The fifth in Surah Hud, رَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ عَلَيْكُمْ. The sixth in Surah Maryam, ذِكْرُ رَحْمَةِ رَبِّكَ عَبْدَهُ زَكَرِيَّا. And then the final one Ibn al-Jazari mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah, أُولَٰئِكَ يَرْجُونَ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ. So in all these cases, we see that the word Rahmah is written with a flat Ta, and everywhere else in the Quran, it's written with the Ta marbuta according to Qiyas. The next word Ibn al-Jazari gives us, he says, Ni'matuha. So we're talking about the word Ni'ma. ثلاث نحل إبرهم معا أخيرات عقود الثاني هم لقمان ثم فاطر كالطور عمران. So he says the word ni'ma in it, and this ha means it's going back to Surah Baqarah in the previous verse. So the word ni'ma in Surah Baqarah, thalathu nahlin, three places in Surah Al-Nahl, Ibrahim ma'an, both places in Surah Ibrahim, akhiratun, meaning these are all the ending places in Surah Ibrahim and in Surah Nahl, as opposed to the beginning places. عقود الثاني هم, Surah Uqud, which is Surah Al-Ma'idah, the second place, which has the word ham in the ayah. اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ هم قوم. Then Surah Luqman, ثم فاطر, then Surah Fatir, كالطور, Surah Al-Tur, and then Surah Imran. So look at each of these places. Again, we're talking about the word ni'mah, which has been spelled with a ta. So if I stopped for Hafs, for example, I would say ni'mat. So there are 11 places Ibn al-Jazari gives us where it is spelled with a flat ta. Surah Al-Baqarah, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Then an identical ayah in Surah Ali Imran, again, وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Then the three places in Surah Al-Nahl, the first one in ayah 72, أَفَبِالْبَاطِلِ يُؤْمِنُونَ وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. Surah Al-Nahl, ayah 83, يَعْرِفُونَ نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ. Then Surah Al-Nahl, ayah 114, وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. The sixth place in Surah Ibrahim, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ بَدَّلُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ كُفْرًا. Then the second one in Ibrahim, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. Then in Surah Ma'idah, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. Then in Surah Luqman, فِي الْبَحْرِ أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ الْفُلْكَ تَجْرِي فِي الْبَحْرِ بِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Then in Surah Fatir, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And finally in Surah Tur, فَذَكِّرْ فَمَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِكَاهِنٍ. So these are the 11 places the word ni'mah is written with a ta, and everywhere else it's written with a ta marbuta according to qiyas. The next word Ibn al-Jazari gives us is when he says عِمْرَانَ لَعْنَةَ بِهَا وَالنُّورِ. So the word لَعْنَةَ biha, going back to the word Imran in Surah Ali Imran, وَالنُّورِ, and also in Surah An-Nur. So the word la'nah, qiyas says it should be spelled with ta marbuta, but there are two places in the Quran where it is written with a flat ta. Surah Ali Imran, فَنَجَعَلْ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْكَاذِبِينَ. And then in Surah Nur, وَالْخَامِسَةُ أَنَّ لَعْنَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. Everywhere else in the Quran, it's written with a ta marbuta according to qiyas. The next word Ibn al-Jazari gives us is وَامْرَأَةٌ يُوسُفَ عِمْرَانَ الْقَصَصِ تَحْرِيمُ. So the word imra'a in Surah Yusuf, Ali Imran, Qasas, and Tahrim. Again, the word should be spelled with a ta marbuta, but in these places we're about to look at, it has been spelled with a flat ta. So the first one, Surah Yusuf, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ امْرَأَةُ الْعَزِيزِ. Then again in Surah Yusuf, قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ الْعَزِيزِ. Then in Surah Ali Imran, إِذْ قَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ عِمْرَانَ. Surah Al-Qasas, وَقَالَتِ امْرَأَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ. Surah Al-Tahrim, which appears twice in the same ayah, ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط. And then also again in Surah Tahrim, the ayah after that one, مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون. And the ulama say what you'll notice about all these places, every time the word imra'a is mudaf in mudaf ilayh structure to her husband, then it becomes spelled with a ta. So here imra'a is mudaf to al-Azizi. Here it's mudaf to Imran. Here it's mudaf to Fir'aun, to Nuh, to Lut, to Fir'aun again. Whenever it's not mudaf to a husband, then it's spelled with a regular ta marbuta. So for example in Surah Nisa, وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا. So in that case it's not mudaf, so it's written with a ta marbuta. The next word Ibn al-Jazari gives us, مَعْصِيَةٌ بِقَدْ سَمِعْ يُخَص. The word مَعْصِيَةٌ especially or only in Surah قَدْ سَمِعْ, Surah Al-Mujadilah. So this word appears twice in the surah, and actually this is the only place it appears in the Quran. وَيَتَنَاجَوْنَ بِالْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَمَعْصِيَةِ الرَّسُولِ, and then again almost an identical ayah right after it. فَلَا تَتَنَاجَوْا بِالْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ وَمَعْصِيَةِ الرَّسُولِ. In this case, the word is spelled with a flat ta instead of a ta marbuta according to qiyas. Then he says, شَجَرَةَ الدُّخَانِ. So this one is very straightforward. The word shajara, only in Surah Ad-Dukhan, it is spelled with a flat ta. Everywhere else in the Quran, it is spelled with ta marbuta. And here we notice that it's mudaf to the word az-zaqum, the specific tree in hellfire. The next word Ibn al-Jazari gives us, sunnat fatiri kullan walanfari wa ukhra ghafiri. The word sunnat in Surah Fatir, Surah Anfal, and the ending of Surah Ghafir. This is how it's spelled in these places. So in Surah Fatir, ayah 43, the word appears 3 times. فَهَلْ يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا سُنَّةَ الْأَوَّلِينَ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا وَلَنْ تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَحْوِيلًا. Then in Surah Anfal, وَإِن يَعُودُوا فَقَدْ مَضَتْ سُنَّةُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. And finally in Surah Ghafir, in the last ayah, سُنَّةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي قَدْ خَلَتْ فِي عِبَادِهِ. Everywhere else in the Quran, it is spelled with a ta marbuta. Now Ibn al-Jazari is going to give us a list of singular words that appear in the Quran. So he says, قُرَّةُ عَيْنٍ جَنَّةٌ فِي وَقَعَتْ فِطْرَةٌ بَقِيَّةٌ وَابْنَةٌ وَكَلِمَةٌ أَوْسَطَ الْأَعْرَافِ. So he gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words we're going to look at individually that only appear once in the places he's going to mention. So the first word is qurrat, which has been spelt with ta in only one place. That's in Surah Qasas. Everywhere else it is spelled with a ta marbuta. Surah Qasas, ayah 9. Qurratu aynil li walak. The next word, jannat, has been spelled with a ta only in Surah Waqi'ah. فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ. The next word, fitrat, has been spelled with a ta in Surah Ar-Rum. فِطْرَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي فَطَرَ النَّاسَ عَلَيْهَا. The next word, baqiyat. This is spelled with a ta in Surah Hud, the first place it appears. Everywhere else, it is written with a ta marbuta. That's in Surah Hud, ayah 86. Baqiyatullahi khayrun lakum. Then the word ibnat. This appears only in Surah Al-Tahrim, ayah 12. وَمَرْيَمَ ابْنَةَ عِمْرَانَ, spelled with a flat ta. Then the word kalimat. However, this requires a bit of a deeper explanation because Ibn al-Jazari, he actually doesn't give us all the details right away. So he says kalimat awsat al-a'rafi, the word kalimat in the middle of Surah Al-A'raf. So in Surah A'raf, ayah 137, the ayah is وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ الْحُسْنَى, and it's spelled with a ta. And the 10 qurra do not differ over how this word is read. They read it with singular. They say kalimat. All of them say kalimatu rabbika. But there are 4 other places in the Quran where the word kalima is also spelled with ta. But why doesn't Ibn al-Jazari mention that? Why does he just say awsat al-a'raf? Because those 4 other places, they will come under the ruling of the second half of the line we're about to look at. Because those 4 places, the 10 qurra, the 10 qira'at, they do have a difference over. So this place in Surah Al-A'raf is spelled with a ta, and the 10 qira'at do not differ over how this word is read. They read it with the singular tense, not with the plural. So let's look at the second half of line 100, where he will give us a general rule to follow. He says, وَكُلُّ مَخْتُلِفْ جَمْعًا وَفَرْدًا فِيهِ بِالتَّاءِ عُرِفْ. وَكُلُّ مَخْتُلِفْ, every time there is a difference amongst the qurra, either the 10 qira'at or beyond that, every time there's a difference, جَمْعًا وَفَرْدًا, whether to read the word in the plural or to read the word in the singular, فِيهِ بِالتَّاءِ عُرِفْ. It is written or it is known with a ta. So if the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were writing a certain word and they knew that there was more than one way to recite it. So you could say, for example, kalimah, or you could say kalimat, single or plural. So they would choose to write it with a ta. And there are approximately 12 words in the Quran that are written with a ta, a flat ta, instead of a ta marbuta, and the 10 qira'at have a difference over how it is recited. So we'll look at those 12 places. So first, let's look at the word kalimat, since we were just talking about it in Surah Al-A'raf. The first place is in Surah Al-An'am, ayah 115, وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا. So all of the Kufan reciters and Ya'qub, they read kalimah in the singular, and everyone else reads with the plural, kalimatu. The second place in Surah Yunus, ayah 33, كَذَلِكَ حَقَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ فَسَقُوا. Abu Ja'far, Nafi', and Ibn Amir, they all read with the plural, so they say kalimatu, and everyone else reads with the singular, kalima. The third place in Surah Yunus, ayah 96, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ حَقَّتْ عَلَيْهِمْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ. Ibn Kathir, Abu Amr, and the Kufans, except Hamza, they all read with the singular, and everyone else reads with the plural, kalimatu. And then finally in Surah Ghafir, وَكَذَلِكَ حَقَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ. Abu Ja'far, Nafi', Ibn Amir, they all read this place with the plural, and everyone else reads with the singular. The next word is ayah or ayat, 2 places in the Quran. The first in Surah Yusuf, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. Ibn Kathir is the only one who reads with the singular, ayatul lis-sa'ilin. Everyone else reads with the plural, ayatul lis-sa'ilin. And the second place is in Surah Al-Ankabut, وَقَالُوا لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ عَلَيْهِ آيَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ or آيَاتٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ. Ibn Kathir and the Kufan reciters, except for Hafs, they read with the singular. Everyone else reads with the plural. The next word is غَيَابَةٌ or غَيَابَات. In Surah Yusuf appears twice. وَأَلْقُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ وَأَجْمَعُوا أَن يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ. Abu Ja'far and Nafi', or you can just say the Medina reciters, they read with plural, غَيَابَاتِ. Everyone else reads with singular, غَيَابَةِ. The next one is in Surah Saba, وَهُمْ فِي الْغُرُفَاتِ آمِنُونَ. Hamza is the only one who reads singular, وَهُمْ فِي الْغُرْفَةِ آمِنُونَ. Everyone else with the plural, وَهُمْ فِي الْغُرُفَاتِ آمِنُونَ. Next place in Surah Fatir, أَمْ آتَيْنَاهُمْ كِتَابًا فَهُمْ عَلَى بَيِّنَةٍ مِّنْهُ. Ibn Kathir, Abu Amr, Hafs, Hamza, and Khalaf, they all read with the singular, بَيِّنَةٍ. Everyone else reads with the plural, فَهُمْ عَلَى بَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنْهُ. The next one in Surah Mursalat, كَأَنَّهُ جِمَالَةٌ صُفْرٌ. The Kufans, except Shu'bah, they read with the singular, جِمَالَةٌ. Everyone else reads with the plural, كَأَنَّهُ جِمَالَاتٌ صُفْرٌ. And the final one in Surah Fussilat, وَمَا تَخْرُجُ مِنْ ثَمَرَاتٍ مِنْ أَكْمَامِهَا. Abu Ja'far, Nafi', Ibn Amir, and Hafs, they all read with the plural, ثَمَرَاتٍ, and everyone else reads with the singular, وَمَا تَخْرُجُ مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ مِنْ أَكْمَامِهَا. So those are the 12 words where the 10 qurra, they differ, whether to read with plural or to read with singular, and as a result, those places are spelled with the flat ta so that it can facilitate both qira'ah. The next section we're going on to now is how to start a word with hamzatul wasl at the beginning. So now we're in Babu Hamz al-Wasli. Ibn al-Jazari says, وابدأ بهمز الوصل من فعل بضم إن كان ثالث من الفعل يضم واكسره حال الكسر والفتح. Ibn al-Jazari says, start off a word with hamzul wasli if it's a verb with dhamma. إن كان ثالث من الفعل يضم. If the third letter in the verb has a dhamma, then the hamzatul wasl will have a dhamma at the beginning. واكسره حال الكسر والفتح. And put a kasra on the hamzatul wasl if the third letter has a kasra or a fatha on it. And that is only with regards to verbs. Then he goes on and says, وَفِي لَسْمَاءِ غَيْرَ اللَّامِ كَسْرُهَا وَفِي. And also in nouns other than al-lam, meaning other than al-ta'rif, kasruha. So all nouns will start with kasra if they have hamzatul wasl at the beginning, excepting a noun that has al-ta'rif at the beginning, it will have fatha. And this second word, wafi, should have a shadda on it. So this is wafi, meaning and in, and wafi, wafiyun, meaning it is present or it is available. And then he lists a series of nouns that have kasra on them just because that is the way we have heard it from the Arabs. So these are the words that appear in the Quran: ibnin, ma'abnatim, ri'in, wathnaini, wamra'atin, wasmim, ma'athnataini. So we'll look at each of these rules in more detail, starting with the verb. So we said if the third letter in a verb has an original dhamma, this is very important. We're talking about verbs, and we need to make sure we specify an original dhamma that's supposed to be in the construction of the word. If this is the case, if the third letter has an original dhamma, then the hamzatul wasl, if I'm starting the word, will be read with dhamma, such as ujtuthat, unzuru, ud'u. So in all three of these examples, the third letter in the verb has a dhamma, and so I start the verb with a dhamma on the hamzatul wasl. Otherwise, if this condition is not met, then it will be read with a kasra. So for example, istakbara. The third letter has a fatha, so I have to put kasra at the beginning. Idrib. The third letter has a kasra, so I have to put a kasra at the beginning. Ituni or ituni. Doesn't this have a dhamma here? Yes, but this dhamma is not original. Because you need to know Arabic, and you need to know that originally this word is itiyuni, itiyuni. So I see the ta originally has a kasra on it, but because of what we call illa sarfiyya, for a sarf reason, the ya disappeared and the ta took its haraka. So this dhamma is not original. As a result, I start the word with kasra. Now we look at the al-ta'rif, Ibn al-Jazari mentioned shortly. So the hamzatul wasl in al at the beginning of nouns will always be read with fatha, such as al-ard, ash-shams, Allahu. In all three of these cases, this sound is part of the definitive particle, so I start it with fatha. Then we go on to nouns. So the hamzatul wasl at the beginning of nouns will always have kasra, such as istikbaran, ibtigha'a, ikhtilafi. All these nouns start with kasra. And then in the science of Nahu, there is a group of words known as the 10 nouns, al-asma'ul ashara. The grammarians say that these 10 nouns have kasra at the beginning of them, not based off of qiyas. So these words up here, these nouns are based off of qiyas. They have a specific wazn, a specific scale they're supposed to fit. So for example, istikbaron, istif'al, this has to have kasra at the beginning. But these nouns, they're not part of any qiyas scale. but they have just been heard from the Arabs to begin with kasra. And of these 10 nouns, 7 of them appear in the Quran in different forms. And Ibn al-Jazari mentions them when he says ibn, ibna, imri, ithnain, imra'a, ism, and ithnataini. So these out of the 10 nouns, these 7 appear in the Quran, and they will always start with kasra. The hamzatul wasl at the beginning will have kasra on them. So for the final section for today, we're going to look at the nahu options we have when I stop on a word in the Quran. So now we're in Babul Waqfi ala awakhiril kalim, the chapter on stopping on the ending of words, which is just 2 short lines. Ibn al-Jazari says, وَحَاذِرِ الْوَقْفَ بِكُلِّ الْحَرَكَةِ, and beware of stopping on a word with a full harakah. Never add a full harakah to the end of a word if I'm stopping on it. So for example, if I wanted to read Surah Al-Buruj and I say وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ, I cannot stop with a kasra there, because the grammarians say that the Arabs, they never stop with a harakah and they never start with a sukoon. The Arabs don't do this in their speech. So I always stop with sukoon. But then he says إِلَّا إِذَا رُمْتَ فَبَعْضُ الْحَرَكَةِ, except if you are doing what is called rawm. فَبَعْضُ الْحَرَكَةِ, then you can pronounce just some of the harakah. You can just pronounce the last harakah very lightly and quickly. إِلَّا بِفَتْحٍ أَوْ بِنَصْبٍ, except if the harakah that you're stopping on is a fatha or it's a word that is mansoob with fatha. And the reason he mentions these terminologies is just to be inclusive of everything in nahu, because some words may be mansoob with fatha, but some words may have a fatha, but it's not because it's mansoob, it's because it is mabni, it is built on that harakah. So he just uses both terminologies to include everything that has fatha on it. And then he says, وَأَشِمْ إِشَارَةً بِالضَّمِّ. There is another option other than rawm, which is to do ishmam, ashim isharatan, give it the signal of a dhamma with your lips, make the symbol or the shape of dhamma with your lips, fi raf'in wa dhamm, in the state or in the case that the word you are stopping on is either marfu' or dhamma, or it just has a dhamma on it because it's mabni. So look at both of these in more detail. So the first thing he talks about is rawm. When I stop on a word, if the last harakah on the word is a dhamma or a kasra, then the reciter has the option of reciting that harakah quickly and quietly. And some of the ulama say it's like you're reciting only 1/3 of the harakah. It goes away very quickly, and it's also meant to be quiet, to indicate to the listener what the harakah is. And this is called rawm. Rawm literally in Arabic is whenever you request or you seek something. So it's like we're just asking for a little bit of the harakah. And the purpose of this action is to clarify the grammatical state of a word, or if I want to demonstrate more than one qira'ah, if I am doing jam', if I am compiling the qira'at into one single khatma, and I want to show the listener that there's more than one qira'ah for this word, I might stop and use rawm to show this to them. So for example, if we go at the end of Surah Buruj, the last ayah, fi lawhim mahfuz, with a dhamma in the qira'ah of Nafi', and then everyone else, fi lawhim mahfuzi, with a kasra. So if I was stopping and I wanted to show the listener, or I wanted the listener to hear both ways, I would say, for example, في لوح محفوظ, في لوح محفوظ. It's a very quick sound. And then for this one, في لوح محفوظ, في لوح محفوظ. So by doing so, the listener can understand there is more than one qira'ah for this word. Now we will look at al-ishmam. We said that ishmam is when I stop, or if I'm stopping on a word and the last haraka is a dhamma, then the reciter has the option of indicating to the listener what the last haraka is by making the shape of a dhamma with their lips. And the word ishmam literally means to give something a light scent. So it's like I am just causing a little bit of the dhamma smell to rub off on the letter. But it's important to note that ishmam has no effect on pronunciation. It is purely something that is visual. So we say that a blind person can hear Raum, and a deaf person can see ishmam, but you cannot switch them. So Raum is something that is heard but not seen, whereas ishmam is something that is seen but not heard. It has no effect on how I pronounce the word. And again, like Raum, this is meant to clarify the grammatical state of a word or to demonstrate more than one qira'ah when stopping on a word. So for example, if I'm reading with the qira'ah of Asim, Shu'ba reads one way and Hafs reads one way. So Hafs says, وَمِن وَرَاءِ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوبَ with fatha. And if I stop, I can't do Raum or Ishmam. I just have to stop and say Ya'qub. And suppose I want to now show the person how does Shu'ba read. I would say it again, وَمِن وَرَاءِ إِسْحَاقَ يَعْقُوبَ. I would stop the same way, but this time when I stop, Ya'qub, I push out my lips in the shape of a dhamma. So the person sitting in front of me will see that there is supposed to be a dhamma on the ba in the qira'ah of Shu'ba. Now we'll look at the concluding verses of the poem. Ibn al-Jazari says, وَقَدْ تَقَضَّى نَظْمِيَ الْمُقَدِّمَةِ. And the ending of my poem, Al-Muqaddimah, has come. مِنِّي لِقَارِئِ الْقُرْآنِ تَقْدِمَةِ. From me to the reciter of the Quran, it is a gift, it is a presentation or an offering I'm giving them. وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ لَهَا خِتَامُ. And all praise is due to Allah at the end of it. ثُمَّ الصَّلَاةُ بَعْدُ وَالسَّلَامُ. And then salah and salutations and prayers as well to Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is actually the official ending of the poem. وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ لَهَا خِتَامُ ثُمَّ الصَّلَاةُ بَعْدُ وَالسَّلَامُ. And this is verse number 107 of the poem. However, some later scholars, because the poem ends kind of abruptly, they decided to add in 2 more lines. And this is approximately 100 years after Ibn al-Jazari. So not his students, but perhaps the students of his students. They added in 1 more line. So they said, عَلَى النَّبِيِّ الْمُصْطَفَى وَآلِهِ. So ثُمَّ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ, prayers and salutations on Prophet Muhammad والسلام, وآله and his family, وَصَحْبِهِ وَتَابِعِي مِنْ وَالِهِ and his companions and those who follow his path. And then someone later on added in 1 last verse to give us the official number of verses. And they said, أَبِيَاتُهَا قَافٌ وَزَايٌ فِي الْعَدَدِ. Its verses are qaf and zay in number. This is referring to the abjad numbering system or al-hisab al-jummal. So qaf is equal to 100, zay is equal to 7, the total is 107. And by this you also know that these last 2 verses are not part of the poem. The poem ends at this verse over here. مَنْ يُحْسِنِ التَّجْوِيدَ يَظْفَرْ بِالرَّشَدِ. Whoever perfects their tajweed will achieve victory with guidance. And that brings us to the end of Muqaddimatul Jazariyyah. These are all the chapters that we have covered. بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَرَحْمَتِهِ. Jazakumullah khair to everyone who participated in this course. We hope to see you guys more in the future. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.